Moves on in, and he scores! He's gonna learn today.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Pod Street Bullies, episode 27, right? 28? 27, 28. We're close to 30. We'll go with that. Guys, I am Derek Bob.
And I am John Gove. What's going on, everybody?
And we've got another Flyers 5 series installment ahead.
Yeah, boy, historians we are.
Yes, quite the historians, you could say.
Yo, before we dive into history, though, I was really puzzled by something this weekend that I kind of need your input on.
Pray tell.
All right, so Carrie and I, my wife and I, we went to a country music concert on Friday. Now, Derek doesn't like country music. He gives me crap about country music. I don't care. I'm a little country. He's a little rock and roll. But you like that? So we have a amphitheater at Jones Beach, which is cool. I mean, it's right on the water. So we decided to go stupid early, like 2 o'clock in the afternoon, to go tailgate, kind of get away from the kid, have a good time. And I could not believe the amount of people drinking these stupid White Claw things.
There ain't no laws when you're drinking White Claws, baby.
Oh, shut up.
Listen, I think it's refreshing.
I think that this is going to make me sound like a complete jerk, and I'm okay with it. But it kind of falls into that, like, girly drink. And I don't mean any offense to that, but like I consider those Smirnoff Ices and things to just be something like typically a girl would drink at a barbecue. Man, we're going to have to get a PR person on this episode. But anyway, seeing these jacked dudes just throw down these White Claws just blows my mind.
I'll be honest. My wife loves those White Claw things because she's a big like seltzer fan, and I don't like seltzer water. If I'm gonna drink water, I want it to be regular water.
I do though. I like seltzer.
Really?
But I just think there's like, I do. I actually really like seltzer, but I just feel like there's a lot of good beer out there. Why do you got to go and drink those White Claw things? And I tried a sip of one once, and they're syrupy, dude. I don't get it.
I tried it one time too because I mean between my sisters too. I have two sisters who are of legal age to drink alcohol. I don't mind them, but like you said, it's not my first choice either. I like beer, and I'm a beer guy through and through.
Yeah, it's just a wild image. To see like these big jack dudes with their cutoff flannels and their cowboy hats with these like bright purple cans. It was just funny.
Those are the type of dudes I expect to see like pounding PBRs, you know, sitting in the back of the pickup truck.
Right, shotgunning Bud Heavies and chasing it with Jack Daniels, you know?
Yeah.
So I don't mean to come off as a sexist jerk, everybody. It was strange to me.
Now I got a question for you, quick.
Okay.
Twisted Tea and White Claw, which one are you drinking?
Oh, man. I don't know.
Gun to your head.
Jeez. I think I'm going to go Twisted Tea.
Get off our show. This is my show.
I'm telling
now.
you, man.
Look at me.
Guess I'll put some ice cubes in a cup. No one will even notice. It's just iced tea. Right? I mean, I don't know. I don't like syrupy things. Like, I'm not a big soda drinker. Like, I can't stand Coca-Cola and stuff like that. And that's what that White Claw stuff reminds me of. It's just, like, syrupy. Ugh,
it's not real sweet, though, is it?
I mean, I don't know. This one kind of was.
Yeah.
It was like a Tutti Frutti a la Moody. I don't know. I completely made that name up.
All right,
but it doesn't taste like seltzer. It tastes like cough syrup that fizzes.
Oh, yeah. Let's just move on then and stop talking about that crap. But
right.
So, as you folks may have known, last week we talked about the top 5 goalies in Flyers history. We ranked them ourselves, talked about busts, underrated goalies as well. This week we're going to do the same exact thing, but we're talking defensemen. So, a lot more names to choose from, which could make these rankings really interesting for both John and myself. I know
it was difficult.
Yeah, I mean, John, that's the simplest way to put it.
You know, I mentioned this a little bit off air. I guess that's what we'll call it, off air. And when you're watching, I mean, when you're rating a forward or a goalie, it's a lot easier to look at stats for people that you just weren't around to watch them play. In the 70s and 80s. With defense, that's a weird way of saying it. Defense, it's so much more difficult because you don't necessarily judge a defenseman on their offensive production, especially back in the day. Maybe now you do a little bit more. So it was challenging.
Yeah, the game's definitely gotten different, so the criteria to judge these guys, I guess, kind of shifts to what we look at now, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the defensemen that we don't mention weren't good defensemen,
Did you factor in plus minus?
Not entirely. Like it's there, and I looked at it and kind of took it into account like a bit, but it's not a make or break type stat for me with this.
I did. Stevie Hate Maps, get at me.
Yeah, I mean I did, but like I'm not going to say it's like I said, the make or break stat.
Well, no, but I looked at it and I wrote it down.
The top 5 that I've got tend to be higher in the plus minus category.
Yeah, right.
So without further ado,
shall we get to it?
Let's do it. Number 5, John. Lay it on me, brother.
Yeah. All right. I've got Andre Moose Dupont.
Oh, good one.
Yeah. I mean, 2-time Stanley Cup champion, was a big part of those Stanley Cup winning teams. I mean, he wasn't a big offensive defenseman. I mean, he had 177 points in 549 games. His plus minus, though, was plus 269 with the Flyers, which is pretty fleeping unbelievable. I can't talk today at all. Yeah. So, I mean, that's what I got to say about him. Moose Dupont, cool name, too.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, 7th overall amongst defensemen in goals. Let's see here. Let me look at my trusty stat sheet here. Penalty minutes, number 1 out of all defensemen, which fits the Broad Street Bully mentality there.
Definitely.
3rd overall in plus minus. You did factor that in.
Yes, I did.
Now, I believe he was, like you said, he wasn't a very big offensive type of defenseman, so that's kind of where the stats end for me. But if we're going to talk about my number 5, he's got a little bit more of an offensive upside to him. It's Ben Wilson.
Ben Wilson?
Ben Wilson.
All right.
Ben Wilson, the pick that the Flyers got to draft him came from the guy who I have later in my list, hint, hint. But he was drafted 6th overall in 78, played for the Flyers the very next year, first year in the NHL. He's 20 years old. That same year, he was 4th place in the Calder vote. He averaged about 43 points a season with Philadelphia. Over the span of 5 years, he had 339 games played, 59 goals, 155 assists for 214 points, plus 83. 20 of his 59 goals came on the power play, and 53 of his 55 assists came on the power play. So, I mean, he was a great power play asset for that team. Later ended up being traded to Chicago for Doug Crossman and the 2nd-round pick in 1984, which turned out to be, do you want to take a guess?
Is it Desharnais?
It is not.
No.
It
I don't know. Who is
Scott Mellenby.
Oh.
Right?
Is that your number 4?
No. God, no.
Wait, I thought you said that was...
No. I said he was traded in 1984, or he was traded for a 2nd-round pick and Doug Crossman, and the 2nd-round pick was during the 1984 draft.
Yeah, but before that, didn't you say that he was traded for the draft pick?
No, Ben Wilson was the draft. All right, there was a trade that involved the person later on in my list, and what the Flyers got back for him was the pick that they used to choose Ben Wilson.
Right, because Desharnais wouldn't have been in 1984.
Do you mean Desjardins?
Yeah, I like saying Desharnais.
Oh, what? You're just... God. Tell me your number 4.
I'm having an off night tonight, so I'm just gonna roll with it. All right.
Let's see how this goes.
All right. Kimmo Timonen, number 4. Oh my!
I said, oh my. I agree. That's. You
have him as number 4?
I've got him as number 4 as well.
Yeah, man. I mean, listen, I had to throw in somebody from an age where I actually watched them. quite closely. 38 goals, 232 assists in 519 games. 150 of his 270 points were on the power play.
That's incredible.
He averaged 22 minutes and 27 seconds on the ice for however long he played with the Flyers. And I mean, he was just a huge part of the team at that point. Like when you thought about Flyers defense, you thought about Kimmo Timonen. He was a big time leader. So that's why he's on my list.
And to kind of build off the whole power play thing, 56% of his total points with the Flyers were power play points. Like, isn't that absurd to you?
56% math.
Yeah, well, blame me for going the extra mile and trying to make us sound better.
I know. I'm not loving this you going the extra mile thing.
You
4 sheets of notes.
Hey, I get bored at work sometimes. But
I hope they don't listen to this.
I don't think anybody cares about hockey there, but if they do, hey.
Right.
Anyways, yeah, you said it all, really. I mean, 7 years with the Flyers, and those 7 years came at a time where both you and I were very, this was us really starting to analyze the game at the level we're at now. And just the difference that Timonen made on the ice. I mean, the guy came back from having blood clots twice. I know. The one time from a slap shot from Andrei Markov, and he even came back later in the Eastern Conference Finals against Pittsburgh there, but still lost part of the 2010 Stanley Cup run, which was phenomenal. I shouldn't say I hated, but the way he kind of went out of Philly sucked because it's like he got diagnosed with the blood clots and didn't play a single game for the Flyers that year when they traded him to Chicago. But when you look at it, that deal for Chicago, they got a 2015 second-round pick, which they flipped to Toronto for the first-round pick to choose Travis Konechny. And then the conditional fourth-round pick actually turned into a third-round pick in 2016, and they chose Wade Allison. So you've traded an aging defenseman in Kimmo Timonen to get Wade Allison and Travis Konechny. So even on his way out, he did the Flyers a favor.
Helping us out.
What a guy.
Yep.
We could go into
And he's connected with the organization now, or did I make that up?
I believe so in some capacity. It wouldn't surprise me one bit if he was.
Right.
But I know that he owns a lot of nightclubs over in his native homeland of Finland.
Damn it.
Kimmo. What do you think? He probably does his own mixes in the middle of it. Remember all the songs you download that says K-Rock? It's probably Kimmo,
Keeping it on the beat.
Okay, we're gonna move on before this gets ugly.
Number 3, shall we?
3. I think. Do you want to start this one as well?
Sure. Jimmy Watson.
Jimmy
Is that who you have?
No, it is not.
Oh boy,
it's not like a Roman Checkmonic.
It's not another
surprise.
Checkmonic thing. I love that people yelled at you for that. Thank you, people.
It was like one
all right,
guy.
Anyway, who cares? Jimmy Watson, 2-time Stanley Cup winner. Again, was a part of the only 2 Stanley Cups in Philadelphia hockey, not Philadelphia sports. He spent his whole career with the Flyers, which is, pretty cool. He averaged 24 points and a plus 39 per 82 games in all those 10 years. So, I pulled that from somewhere. I didn't do that myself because I don't think I could get a calculator to figure that out. But yeah, all I've read about this guy was that he was a really good defenseman in this era and was arguably their best defenseman in this time period.
And his
but
brother,
I never saw him play.
His brother Joe wasn't bad either.
No,
but
he was the better one.
Yeah, of course. Watson, you look at it, he has the 5th most games played. He's got the 9th most goals, 9th most assists, and he's not even in the top 10 for points. His brother actually is more... He's 6th in points. Joe.
Right.
But his plus minus is incredible. I mean, wow.
And that the accolades help too, though. Like the Stanley Cup champ thing. Like when you're looking at trying to make a list, when you see things like that, that kind of helps you put them on the list. At least it did for me.
Of course, yeah. And it's like the Bernie Perrant argument. You know, he was a great goalie in his own sense and without the cups, but like the cups definitely solidify his spot at number 1 for us.
Right.
Yeah. So number 3, this is the guy that they traded to get Ben Wilson, Tom Bladden.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, second round, 1972 NHL draft, they chose him 23rd overall from the WCHL Edmonton Oil Kings. He holds the Flyers record for most points in a game with 8, 4 goals, 4 assists. Shares that record with Paul Coffey, and that was one of the more notable names on that list. There's a bunch of names. And he's got the second most points in a game in the NHL, also tied with a lot of people.
Right.
Him and Orst Kinderchuk and Ross Lonsberry were part of the deal to Pittsburgh for the first-round pick that chose Ben Wilson. But over the course of 463 games, Bladden had 67 goals, which ranks third amongst all defensemen in the Flyers, 163 assists, which is fourth, and he is also fourth with 230 points for all defensemen. His plus-minus ranks sixth amongst all Flyers defensemen, 186 points, and a lot of people... he's got a heavy shot, quick release, and this was all a lot of like the alumni page that they like to describe him. But he got booed a lot towards the end of his tenure with the Flyers. He was very erratic for his decision making. So it kind of tells you maybe he wasn't so sound on defense, but his offensive numbers obviously were there. But like it doesn't take away from the fact that he has those numbers to show for it.
Yeah, and again, it's very difficult to judge someone's defense when we haven't watched them play.
Absolutely.
I mean, you start to rely a little bit more on the numbers, maybe when you shouldn't have. But hey, whatever. Number 3, I'm cool with it.
Yeah, you got to figure out a way to, rank these guys, and you can't just leave a guy off the list because you didn't see him play.
Right.
Yeah. So,
I like it.
Number 2.
I'm assuming that this is where we're going to start to sync up.
Yeah, this is right there. This is really
that's the
who
sync
else?
noise.
That was cute.
Eric Desjardins. Eric Desjardins.
You just sound like you're trying too hard there with the enunciation.
Eric Desjardins.
That sounds better. That's much better. Okay.
So anyway, should I actually start talking about him?
I would like you to.
Okay. Well, we acquired him in a trade. We traded Mark Recchi to Montreal for him, and do you know who else?
Jean Leclerc.
Yeah, boy. Look at you with the fancy words.
And
Gilbert
a
partridge in a pear tree. Oh, look at you.
Yeah, I did my research on this.
Look at you're such a one-upper.
Look, but they also traded a third-round pick along with Recchi. So get your facts straight.
Well, thanks. And they're also sipping on a Coke, right, while they were doing it.
Probably.
Because they don't mind the syrupy taste.
Yeah, of course.
Anyway, we're taking a lot of these tangents, man. We're just like,
let's
offseason.
Go. Sync up. Come on now.
All right. Cup winner in 1993, not with the Flyers. Still pretty cool. 2-time All-Star, which is cool with the Flyers. 7-time Barry Ashby Trophy winner. I think it was something like he won like 4 or 5 straight, too.
Oh, yeah.
It was something like that. Yeah, second most points for a defenseman with 396. And, I mean, he was the team's number 1 defenseman through pretty much the entirety of his Flyers tenure. So, boom.
It still amazes me, that trade. Because, Mark Recchi was good, but look at what they got back.
Right.
Good. That's one of their top forwards for how long John Leclerc was, and then their top defenseman for a majority of 11 years. It's phenomenal. Do you know they used to call Eric Desjardins Rico too?
I did not.
Yeah, fun fact for you.
Should I have known that?
No, I mean, it doesn't make any difference. He was paired with Chris Therien for a majority of his career as well. Captain from 99 to 06. And this was after Lindros was stripped after complaining about the medical staff, which I found that kind of funny.
Right.
Also, he is the first and only defenseman with a hat trick in the Stanley Cup final, which came during the game where McSorley got busted for having an illegal curve to his stick.
Oh, jeez.
Do you remember that? I mean, we were very young.
I mean, I don't know if I remember it
but you know
that
the
day. But yes, I know this. Yeah, definitely.
So, stat-wise, third amongst all defensemen with games at 738, second in goals, assists, and points, 93 goals, 303 assists, 396 points, seventh in plus minus, good lord, with 143, and then time on ice became a stat in 98-99, and what they had recorded was 24 and a half minutes he averaged on ice per night, which is pretty impressive. It would explain the stats.
Pretty unbelievable. That's a lot of time.
Yeah, and I love Eric Desjardins because growing up, that was when I really started getting into it. Like we talked last week about my reason for liking Czech Monic so much, but Desjardins is my Czech Monic, but much better.
But it's actually justified. Yeah,
exactly. I fell in love with this guy because I just fell in love with his style of hockey, and he was a premier offensive threat on the blue line, and it's just that's something that you didn't really see a ton of back then. And I say back then like it was ages ago. It was only 20 years ago. But still, it's I just became enamored, and I'm like, I love this guy. He's so cool. He's great. He's awesome. He's so good at hockey. And so
great hair too.
Yes. Some great lettuce up there.
Ah, man, I wish I could grow hair like that, dude.
Dude, my hair's too thick. It looks like crap.
Mine too. It's thick and black and gross.
So
anyway,
I'm assuming we also have a unanimous number one as well.
Andy Mack.
I was actually gonna go Luke Shen. Wow, no. Another one we differ on.
Oh well. No, so yeah, Mark Howe.
Of course.
How could you not?
Good one. I'm going to take this one now because you lost privileges.
Okay.
So I did like I said, way too much research. But how many guys do you know that got to play in the league on the same team as their brother and their father in one season?
It's awesome. I think it's so cool. I'm actually a huge Gordie Howe guy. I showed you when you were here my Gordie Howe Hartford Whalers jersey.
Oh yeah, and I fell in love as soon as I saw it. I was like, this is incredible.
Yeah. Super cool.
I mean, he came over to the NHL after the WHA and the NHL merged in '79. Boston tried to reclaim him when the WHA and NHL merged because they had drafted his rights in '74. But the Whalers actually became a team coming over from the WHA, and they used a priority selection to retain him. Detroit and Hartford had a gentleman's agreement, so Gordie Howe stuck with the Whalers, and Montreal traded Marty Howe's rights to Detroit. All three of them played one more season together in Hartford in the NHL.
Pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean imagine having a brother and a dad and playing with them in the Premier League of hockey.
Right.
That'd be so cool.
I thought you were going to go soccer on me for a second.
Oh, God, no. I mean, Premier League, not Premier League.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, but he also, I found this pretty interesting, too. December of 1980, he slid into the middle of the goal, because remember how the goals used to be? It looked like, for lack of a better term, it looked like a ball sack.
Okay, well there you go.
Yeah, slid into the pointed edge and suffered a 5-inch gash in his rectal area.
Wait, the ball sack gashed his rectal area?
It had two little yeah, I guess maybe I could have chose my words a little better there, but you know exactly what I'm talking about and how the goals were shaped.
I do not.
Oh well, you'll have to look that one up then.
Yeah.
But he sued the NHL, and the NHL actually changed the design of the goal to what it is today. Hartford ended up losing faith in Mark Howe after losing 21 pounds, actually, due to a liquid diet, and so they traded him to Philadelphia. Philadelphia sent Greg Adams, Ken Linsman, and a first-round pick, which ended up being David Jensen in 1983, and a third-round pick ending up being Leif Carlson for Mark Howe, and a third-round pick in the 83 draft. So Hartford lost faith in him and then traded him away, and look what he did.
I know. Hall of Famer, baby. His number's retired up in the rafters.
Yeah.
I mean, I think you said it all. I mean, I think the only thing you didn't say is where he grew up.
Where did he grow up, John?
Wait, did you say that?
I didn't say where he grew up.
Detroit, Michigan.
He did grow up in Detroit.
Michigan.
He was also a three-time runner-up for the Norris Trophy. And listen to these names that he lost out to. So, 82-83, Rod Langway.
Yep.
85-86, he lost out to Paul Coffey and Coffey's 138-point season.
Well, there you go.
The very next season, he lost out to Ray Bork. Like, good Lord.
Okay, yeah. I mean, crazy. And I'm going to kind of segue for a second because no Norris Trophy winners on this list.
Right? And it shocks me because of how good not just Desjardins and Howe were, but like the Flyers had some really good defensemen coming up through, Right.
Yeah, I mean, it just shows you how great the league is, though. Yeah. I mean, the award only goes to one person each year, and it doesn't really matter how great your season is. There could be somebody out there that had a better year, and that seems to be the case.
Like Paul Coffey and 138 points. Like, that's unreal for a defenseman.
Crazy.
Right.
It's so nuts. But, I mean, that's a top five, but we're missing somebody that people are probably going to yell at us for not putting on the list.
You're right. Do you want to indulge them?
Chris Pronger.
Yes.
So when I originally went into this list, I was like, well, Chris Pronger is definitely going to be on my list. But the more and more that I started to kind of put the people in place, I realized that although he's probably one of the league's best defensemen ever, he really didn't do too much of that in Philadelphia. I mean, what did he play? 2 seasons with Philadelphia?
He played 2 seasons, yes.
So, I mean, and one of them was he did really well, but it's just sample size. Like, I can't say he's one of the best Flyers defensemen when he hardly played with the team.
Like, is he one of the best defensemen that ever played with the Flyers? Sure.
Yeah.
But is he one of the best Flyers defensemen?
Right. It's like Michael Jordan playing with the Wizards.
Yeah. You can't say that Michael Jordan with the Wizards was good.
Right. Right. And Chris Pronger wasn't bad. Like, I don't want to say that he was bad with Philadelphia, but the reason that he didn't make my list is because the Chris Pronger that made his name, that wasn't in Philadelphia.
You're right. You're absolutely right. I
had to give it to my boy Kimo.
Oh, yeah. I think Keemanen deserves it over Pronger, but at the same rate, Pronger was, for all intents and purposes, a very good defenseman for the Flyers. And, I mean, even in the leadership role and the mentor role that he played for some of these younger defensemen while he was injured and still under contract with the Flyers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was wild, though. That whole thing, like he was still on the books.
And then they traded his contract to Arizona.
Such a strange thing.
Got to meet the cap floor, man.
So weird.
I know.
Anyway, shall we move on to our next category?
I say we get to the busts.
Now, I'm actually really intrigued by this because Derek kept saying to me, dude, I'm pumped for the bust. I'm pumped for the bust. And, like, I came up with 3 really obvious names. And, I mean, maybe the order isn't so obvious, but I'm really intrigued to figure out why you got so excited about this.
My number 1 is going to be the one that I told you you're not going to expect just because I want to save it for last.
Okay, so, I mean, it might not necessarily be your number 1. You're just putting it there for shock factor.
It has its own case to be number 1, but, like, the first 2 are going to be pretty obvious, like you said, for me at least.
Right. All right, so do you want me to start or do you want to do it?
I say you go for the first one. I'll go number 2.
All right, so my number 3 bust has probably the coolest name of all the busts in all the land. Darren Rumble. He was the 20. Yeah, let's get ready to rumble. He never got ready. He never got ready to rumble. He was the 20th overall pick in 1987. He played 18 games through 3 years in Philly with 1 point. And from what I heard, he wasn't very good. Like, I know offenses and everything with defenders, but he wasn't very good. There was no rumble in the jungle with this fellow.
You are just full of these, witty sayings here.
Yeah.
I went with one of the more recent choices. I went with Luke Shen.
Okay.
Now, first round pick, 5th overall for Toronto in 2008, and then the Flyers traded for him, and we all know what they gave up for him. It was a hefty price to pay to get a defenseman, but at that time the Flyers needed a defenseman, and especially being a right-handed shot, that's a big advantage. And Shen he played 213 games, part of 4 seasons, 42 points, averaged 18 and a quarter minutes on ice, ended up being part of a package deal with LeCavalier to get Jordan Wheel in a 3rd rounder from LA. Right. I hated that they gave up JVR for that trade, and I hated the fact that he never blossomed into the defenseman that a lot of people thought he would. So,
no, I mean, that's a great pick. I think you and me are kind of just picked different ways of going about this. I think, he's definitely got more of a sample size to look at and say this guy definitely didn't meet his potential. But most of my guys.
But on the flip side, too, you don't necessarily need a sample size to be a bust, because if you're drafted as high as Rumble there, it's just, and you don't play up to your potential, that's a bust,
Yeah. Well, my next guy kind of fits the same bill. Steve Smith. He was drafted 16th overall in 1981. Well, he played 14 games with Philly through 4 seasons. So it's not like he played 14 games in 1 year. Through 4 years, he got a grand old total of 14 games.
Ouch.
Yep. Now, to be fair, I looked at people who were drafted after these two guys back in 1987 and 1981, and in the first round, nobody really stood out. I mean, there were names in the 2nd, 3rd round that were like, oh, wow, but we played that game before. We're not going to do that. But still, it's a bust. 16th overall, he plays 14 games in 4 years. No bueno.
Yeah, no bueno at all. My number 2 is a little more obvious. It is the one and only, one of the best defensemen that ever played for the Flyers, Andrew McDonald. When you think about it, the trade at the time they made the trade, it made sense because McDonald was one of the premier defensemen being shopped at the deadline that year. They traded for him with the Islanders. They traded Matt Mangine, who last I heard he was, selling fake Oakleys down at the Phillies games. They traded him. They traded a 3rd round pick in 2014 and a 2nd round pick in 2015, and immediately signed him to a 5-year, $30 million extension. That was a mistake. The second mistake,
yes,
I shouldn't call this a mistake, but the 3rd round pick that they traded for him turned into Ilya Sorokin, who is one of the higher tier goalie prospects in the league right now. The 2nd round pick that they traded ended up being Brandon Carlo. Really. And to cap it all off and to put a bow on this pretty little bust, 6 seasons, 291 games, 72 points. And every single year, his average time on ice dropped. Yep. And his average total is 19 and a half minutes. 11 goals, 61 assists. He averaged 2 goals a year. And if I can do the math real quick, that's 8 assists, or 8 points. He averaged about 8 points, good God. 12 points. Averaged 12 points per year, per season.
Right. He's an interesting one, though. I want to talk a little bit more about him first, because would he be a bust if it wasn't for the mistakes that management made? Like, he was kind of like a 7th defenseman. that got paid $5 million a year. I always said that if he wasn't making that money, Philadelphia wouldn't have hated him as much. I mean, I don't think we would have liked him.
But at the time of the trade, he wasn't a seventh defenseman. He was a potential top pairing guy. He just never panned out, and it's different system. Yeah, he played really well in New York, but blocked shots only get you so far, and he was one of the league leaders leading up to that season.
Right. Yeah. I mean, hey, that's a good bust.
Yeah, not too shabby, huh?
Not too shabby. All right, my number one. Steve Eminger.
Oh, good one.
Yeah. Well, he was a former first-round pick. He was a former first-round pick for Washington, 12th overall. Mm-hmm. Well, Philadelphia traded for him. They traded away their first-round pick for him. I believe that Washington also gave Philly like a third-round pick or whatever. That first-round pick turned into John Carlson.
Yes, it did.
Which would have been nice, but who knows if Philadelphia would have picked him. But still, that's what we get to boo-hoo about. And then he played 12 games.
Yep.
With the Flyers. I mean,
12 games.
12 games and 2 points.
Oh.
I mean, and there's absolutely nothing else to say about the guy.
They traded him to Tampa, and they traded him and Steve Downey and a fourth-round pick for a third-round pick.
There is something else to say about the guy.
Just one quick.
Pain in the ass.
He was my number 4. Like, he was right there. But they traded him for Matt Carl, and that's kind of what did it for me, because it's like, okay, Luke Shen traded away, and they brought back Jordan Wheel. The Wheel sucks. So
right.
But they traded away Eminger for Matt Carl, and Matt Carl was pretty good in some of the time here in Philly.
Right. I mean, it just seemed like everybody was waiting for this Eminger guy to blossom, and it just never happened.
Yeah, and it's a shame. It really is, especially considering what we could have got for that pick that we traded away.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So are you ready for this?
I'm ready for it.
Roman
Cechmanek.
He's a goalie, John. Come on. My number 1 bust, more so just for shock factor, so I can shock John here. Eric Gustafsson.
Really?
Now get ready, because like I said before, I did my homework. So,
okay,
undrafted, signed an ELC with the Flyers back in March of 2010. Never played over 31 games in 4 seasons with the Flyers. 144 AHL games, 91 NHL games. In his AHL games, he had 95 points out of 144 games. Not bad, correct?
Not bad. Not bad.
Comes to the NHL, 91 games, 23 points.
Right.
Now, after his ELC was up, he left, went to the KHL, played for Avangard Omsk. 22 points in 56 games. Next year, played for the Kloten Flyers. The next year, played for the Kloten Flyers in the NLA, 29 points in 48 games. 2016 to 2018, he played 3 seasons in the KHL total. 98 games, 42 points. 2 seasons with Avangard Omsk, one with, I can't pronounce it, I'm not even going to try.
Okay.
This past year, he went to play in the SHL for Lulea HF. 27 points in 49 games. He was their captain. He led the blue line. He played on the top pair, and he won the Salming Trophy, best defenseman in the SHL, which is essentially the Norris Trophy for the NHL. He became the best defenseman on that team.
Why is he a bust, though?
Because that's something the Flyers could have had.
Except it seems like he couldn't crack it at the NHL.
But he was also young. You got to factor that in. Right. It takes a little bit sometimes for some of these defenders.
No, I got you. But just to say that he's, kicking butt in the SHL doesn't mean that he would be great with the NHL.
You're right, and it goes back to an argument we somewhat had last week where it's kind of just the disappointment factor,
Right. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
and I get that.
I always had a soft spot for him because he was one of those guys that back when we didn't have the farm system, back when we didn't have the prospects, it was like him and Eric Wellwood were the 2 guys that we were like, they're the prospects that we have, and the rest are just kind of fodder. We don't care.
Right.
And so there was these high hopes, and everybody's like, Gustafson's going to be on the blue line, a top 4 pairing guy, and Wellwood's going to be this and that, and it just never panned out. And Gustafson saw the writing on the wall, and he's like, screw it, I'm out of here, I'm going overseas.
Yeah.
Which I can't blame him.
No, and good for him. Seems like he's succeeding.
He is.
Oh, all right, so now time for the underrateds.
Underrateds, yes.
All right. Do you want to kick this off this time?
I'll kick this one off, and I'll give you my third most underrated.
Okay.
Bob Daly.
Okay.
Bob Daly was a 6'5" defenseman playing in the early 80s, I believe, late 70s as well. Averaged about 40 points per year. Now, like, when you say Bob Daly, you don't really, you're not like, oh yeah, definitely Flyer back in the day. You know, it's one of those names.
I think of the golfer.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. John Daly.
Wait, that's not his name. Well, there you go.
Well, way to go, John. But Bob Daly, I mean, he shattered his ankle at the beginning of the 82 season, and that ended his career. He was 28 years old.
Yes.
But this guy, for a 6'5" defenseman, those are the kind of guys you look at and you're like, that's our enforcer. That's the guy that's the defensive defenseman, the stay-at-home guy. But he was averaging 40 points a year, and he had 57 points in 1978. Right. So, like, I view that as underrated because it's like you had a guy that was kind of the best of both worlds, a big, hulking defenseman that could still score points, you know? And he just, that's not a name that people are like, yeah, Bob Daly, that's the guy.
Right. No, I like it. I went with Yanni Pikkinen.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah, I mean, listen, he had a really short tenure with the Flyers, and he had injury trouble later on in his career, but he was a first-round pick, 4th overall back in 2002, and his 3-year tenure with the Flyers was not bad.
Not
116 points in 206 games. I mean, his first year he had 27 points. He had 8 goals and 19 assists. But then the following year he had 46, and the year after that he had 43. And he was great on the power play too. 54 power play points.
Good.
So, I mean, I just put him as underrated because I think, you know, people look at those 3 years and go, oh, but after that he was nothing, and we traded him to Edmonton, and he got hurt. But
yeah,
there was a lot of promise there.
Oh, for sure. And he had, amongst defensemen that played 100 games for the Flyers, he was 9th overall with .121 point goals per game.
I'm going to kill you.
Dude, I'm telling you, man, these I didn't even crunch these numbers. They're on a website, Quant Hockey, quanthockey.com.
Okay.
9th overall in assists per game and points per game, he was 7th.
Well, thanks a lot, Quant Hockey.
I will say you're welcome on their behalf.
Okay. Well,
my number 2,
who's your
Kim Janssen.
Nice.
I loved Kim Janssen. He was another one of those guys like Desjardins for me, where like growing up and I get to see these guys play, I was like, I like him. I really like him. And 01 to 04 were his best years. He made the Eastern Conference Finals in 04, but we all know they lost that Game 7 to Tampa Bay. But then the lockout came the next year. And after that, he just kind of dropped off the map. He just wasn't that good. He went to, I believe it was Minnesota, played for another team as well, and just kind of, he was part of a team that, yeah, they were great, but he kind of just fell along the wayside because I believe that was the same time Desjardins was playing as well. Mm-hmm. So it's like all the attention and all the focus went to him, aside from Kim Janssen. So it was like he was a very solid defender at his time when he was good, and then as soon as he dropped off the map, it was just like, damn, that sucks.
Yeah. No, I like it. My number 2 is Mark Streit.
Interesting.
I really like Mark Streit, and I think that he was asked to be this team's number 1 defenseman when this team's defense really was bad. We got him later on in his career, but he had 140 points in 274 games, 61 points on the power play, averaged over 21 minutes a game. And I just think that, you know, if he was with a better group of defensemen, people wouldn't have given him such a hard time. I thought he was a good leader. You know, and the dude was old, and he could still play.
He came into the league later than normal, so like that probably helped.
Right.
But yeah, I completely agree with you.
And I just think he's one of those people like when you think of him, people go, "Oh God, that defense was awful," but he was kind of just like, unfortunately, a victim of a really poor unit.
Yeah, and that's kind of, you're a victim of your circumstances, and that just, it didn't work to his advantage.
Right.
Yeah. So number 1.
Yep.
Most underrated.
Yep.
Who you got?
Oh, you're gonna make me go first again?
Do you want me to go first?
Yeah, that's what you've been doing the first crack at these.
Oh, okay. I'll go first then. I chose Ed Van Impe.
All right.
Part of the Broad Street Bullies back in the day. He was captain for the Flyers their first season in 68, and then all the way to 73, gave way to Bobby Clark. He was an expansion draft selection. So, like, he came in at a time where the team just was poop, you know? And
Right.
he was their captain, and he played 8 seasons. He was the guy that slashed Valery Kharlamov, and that caused the Soviet team to leave the ice during the 76 Super Series. That's my main focal point for this one. Him, American hero Fred Shero, and Ed Snyder ended communism.
And David Hasselhoff.
No, and not David Hasselhoff. David Hasselhoff, that was Germany. Germany wasn't communist. It was a dictatorship.
Dude, no, it wasn't. It was the Soviet Union. The Berlin Wall, didn't it split East and West Germany because one of them was part of the Soviet Union and the other one wasn't?
I don't know, but I'll tell you
I'm pretty sure that's
I want
it.
to call your history teacher and ask if you ever paid attention in those classes.
I love history.
I bet you do.
David Hasselhoff.
We need some elevator music playing right now.
David Hasselhoff ended the Cold War, which essentially means communism.
If you didn't hear that, that was cricket sounds. I don't care.
Oh, okay. Well, he did. He ended it.
Whatever. Well, I'm talking hockey-centric stuff here because we're a hockey-centric podcast.
All right, fine.
Yeah, you want history, go somewhere else.
Ed Van Impe.
Ed Van Impe, yeah. And, I mean, physical defenseman, very physical, obviously. You know, and I guess people forget that the Flyers had some great defensemen during that time where they were a very physical team because they didn't put up the points that people look at and they're like, oh, wow, points. You know, it's that flashy thing that you can just reach out and grab. But, like, these older players get a lot of the credit, and they should get a lot of the credit because that's just, you know, Desjardins, Howe, they all put up the points. But, like, the guys like Van Impe were the ones in the trenches making sure that they could clear the way for those guys.
Definitely. I like it. That's a good one. That's not who I picked. I decided to go a little bit more modern with these.
Oh.
And you're either gonna like this pick or you're gonna hate it.
Okay.
You ready?
I'm ready.
Braden Coburn.
I love it.
I really liked Braden Coburn, and I think he's one of those guys that just got a bad rap for no reason. I mean, yeah, he made a few bonehead plays here or there. I remember watching the game that he scored on his own goal.
Oh, God.
You remember that one?
Yes.
That was a wild experience.
Yeah.
But, I mean, 161 points in 576 games, plus 24 average, 32 power play points. But he was a solid, you know, top 4 defenseman for the Flyers. You know, not everybody is going to wow you. And I just think that in Philadelphia, if they don't wow us, then they suck.
Yeah.
And I think he was kind of treated unfairly in that.
Oh, yeah. No, I absolutely agree. I think Coburn was a very essential part to that run to the Cup, especially back in 2010.
Right.
Yeah. And, I mean, what they got for him when they traded him to Tampa was phenomenal. So even on his way out, like Timonen, thanks, pal. Yeah. So general observations, looking at these defensemen, you know, what's one thing that really stuck out to you, I guess, in general?
I think that there were just a lot of like really solid guys. You know, I mean, I think besides for the top 2 in Howe and Desjardins, there weren't anybody else that was just like, oh man, this guy was unbelievable. But there were a lot of names that were just like, oh wow, this guy was a solid defenseman. Like I don't think you would say that they were, your top pairing guys, but I was impressed by like the depth of solid defensemen, I guess.
Yeah. No, and that it's kind of like the goaltender talk when we said that they had stat wise, most of their goalies were above average during their time in the NHL.
Right.
And
right. And I think
go ahead.
Go ahead. Sorry. No, you go.
I was going to go on my point, but you're going to build off yours, so you go.
Well, it's like a second point, and I don't want to steal your point, so you go ahead.
All right. So a lot of defensemen, there were a lot of defensemen that the Flyers had that made an impact, but not necessarily seen on the score sheet. You had guys like Chris Therien. You had guys like Darian Hatcher. You had guys like Ed Van Impe, Chris Pronger being a mentor off the ice, Kel Samuelson, DuPont, the Watson brothers. Like, you don't see it on the score sheet, but you also got to think back to the Broad Street Bully days. Those guys were the intimidating blue line. They were the guys that someone's skating it up the ice, you're like, crap, I'm skating into this guy. Like, I'm skating into a Watson brother, or I'm skating it into Moose. No one wants to skate at a dude named Moose. Like, come on.
Yeah. No, and I think, too, it brings up a good point with the defense position in general. It's one of those positions where, like, if you're doing your job as far as, like, playing solid defense, nobody really notices you because it's the goalie that's making all the stops, But if you're letting people blow by you, then you suck.
Very good point.
It's really interesting. I mean, now we put into the offensive factor, too, right? So we can judge what they contribute offensively, and that's such a big part in today's game. But back then, it was just people doing their job.
Too many people seem to forget that their position is defenseman, and the first part of that word is defense.
Right.
So, yeah, I think that sums up our top five. That sums up our underrated, our busts, and we could move on to... Hold on a second.
What the
Our Wait What segment, folks.
This is going to get weird.
This is going to get extremely weird. So preface that, just be ready.
Oh, boy.
This is a conjunctive wait what for the both of us because we both had some interactions on Twitter earlier this week that were very interesting, to say the least. So
you kind of had like more of the hands-on experience with this, so you kind of provide, and then I'll add the color commentary on this one.
I'm gonna be Jim Jackson. You be Bill Clement.
Okay.
We're gonna do this. So we're gonna keep names anonymous as well. We're gonna have some fun with this though. So a friend of ours, I was speaking to this person, this individual, and I don't know how it got there. I don't know what circumstances provided this, but we ended up on the topic of sugar daddies. Sugar daddy is somebody that pays somebody for attention, for talking to them, some kind of service that I guess, whatever they judge or deem necessary. So,
but it's also, I mean, I always looked at it as the term of like, it's just, I mean, a rich guy, and who has typically like a younger wife that just pays for everything. I mean, that's originally what I thought the sugar daddy was until we went into the depths of Twitter.
Yeah, and the depths of Twitter did not disappoint, folks. There was another individual for our website, and I spoke to this guy briefly, tweeted back and forth with him, and another individual got drug into this conversation, and I was speaking with that individual, I believe it was Monday or Tuesday. It was interesting, and I've used that word before, obviously. But this person, that the sugar daddy, we'll call him the sugar daddy, was very persistent in acquiring a sugar baby, someone that he could pay to talk to him, and that's all that he wanted.
Yep.
Nothing.
Yep. He made that very clear.
Yes.
No sexual stuff.
No.
Just wanted someone to talk to.
Yes. Now, keep in mind, some of these people can be very creepy.
Right.
So,
I think,
yeah, they
listen,
can be.
Dude, paying people to want to talk to them is creepy.
Yeah, just listen to us. We're talking to you right now. But
right.
So, I guess really to summarize this whole ordeal, we'll call it, the person that we recommended to be a sugar baby, her DMs...
As a joke.
Yes, as a joke. Their direct messages on Twitter had been flooded that day with multiple sugar daddies. And they were not happy with me. They were not happy with the other individual that took part in this as well. Now, it's all smoothed over. They don't hate us. You know, this individual does not hold any contempt for us. We were all having fun, and I believe that they blocked this individual, the sugar daddy. But it just opens up this can of worms that I don't even know.
Dude, when I saw one of the tweets, I had to click on the hashtag sugar baby, and it is unreal what you see when you click on that. And I'm not talking about graphic stuff, but this isn't like a rarity. Like, there's all of these like 50 plus dudes just looking for girls to talk to them for like hundreds of dollars a week.
Yeah. Now, I don't know. I don't think I told you this, but one of the DMs that our friend here received was this individual who stated, "I will give you $500 for photos of your feet."
Yo, I'll send him some pictures of my feet.
Right?
I don't know if they're worth $500, but hey, I got bills to pay.
Yeah, I'll take half that. Who cares? You want to see these feet? Sweet.
Yeah. Well, what about the whole? And this is where I'm going to get a little dad. What about the whole bit asking this particular person how old they were, and that particular person said 16, and the dude was completely fine with it?
This sugar daddy said that his daughter is around the same age as well.
Listen, dirtbag.
Yeah.
Listen, dirtbag. Not you, Derek.
Thanks for clarifying.
Now, I have a daughter, and she's 2. She's a long way away from sugar baby realm or wherever we're going here. But if I'm at the gym with you and you're talking about how you're trying to pay some 16-year-old girl to be your friend, I would punch you right in the face over and over and over again until nobody wanted to see you. It's disgusting. It's absolutely disgusting.
And while the intentions might not have been sexual, we'll say that, it's still, you never know in this day and age. It's, without getting too like Mr. Rogers-esque, it's just, you never know with these type of things. It's strange, you know.
Listen, man, if it wasn't that he didn't want something sexual, and maybe not like physically sexual, but through the virtual realm, okay, he'd be looking for somebody more his age so he had something to actually talk about. What does he have in common with a 16-year-old besides for the fact that his daughter listens to the same music as her? Ugh.
Yeah, it was a mess, and yeah, we had a little bit of fun with it. We started feeling a little guilty because of some of the circumstances.
4 showers.
Yeah, it was pretty bad. I've got a little bit of remorse towards it, but at the same rate, you know, we were just having a little bit of fun, and
right. It's like people watching in the mall. Like it's not the nicest thing to do, but you can't help it.
You feel dirty, but at the same rate, you're keeping yourself entertained.
But the whole what part of this is this whole sugar daddy, sugar baby thing? I did not realize that it was an actual like big time thing.
It's perplexing.
It's crazy.
You know, I've got a wife. You've got a wife. We can talk to them, and we don't have to pay them, or at least we just pay for bills and shit.
Listen, like I mean, I get that, you know, some people feel like it's harder to connect with others, but let's pretend that there is no sexual thought about, going through this guy's head, that he just really wants someone to talk to. I can't imagine being in a place where I'd think I had to pay somebody hundreds of dollars to talk to me.
Yeah. That's a ridiculous price.
Like, I'm going to start charging you. Well, listen, Derek, you want me to be my friend? That's $400 a week.
That's too steep. I will say, it's still too steep. I will say, though, that the conversation I had with the sugar baby, I told her that I helped set this up and I wanted a 20% fee. I've yet to hear back, but I have the contract drawn up. So if you're listening, sugar baby, get at me.
Well, great. Now we're going to be the Pod Street pimps.
Pimp Daddy D. I told her that's the only thing I will be ever referred to ever again.
Oh, we're gonna lose listeners after this one.
I don't know. I feel like this is entertainment. So this is
All right.
Pimp Daddy D and my sugar baby John.
Yeah.
So we're done with that. We're going to move on here to the last segment. We're going to talk about some Twitter questions, folks. We had a lot of questions, but not a lot of people. We had two separate people ask 3 different questions, which...
And they're not all hockey related either, which is fun.
Yeah, like we're going to have some fun, you know? So first question we get from Papa John. Papa John has 3 questions we're going to ask here. We're going to rattle them off. First question, will the Flyers ever again have the persona they exhibited under Ed Snyder?
So, for this question, were you taking it as kind of like that Broad Street bully, you know, like tough, knock them all out, you know, not afraid to take a penalty or fight people kind of personality? Is that what you were thinking with this?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to it. There's a lot of layers because if you knew Ed Snyder, you knew his mentality. It was always hockey first. It was, you know, everything was hockey 24/7, and obviously the Broad Street Bullies, you know, that's the mentality that kind of sticks with you when you say Ed Snyder. But I did take it that way without going too deep into it.
Like the physicality and edge that always just was kind of attached to the Flyers.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
I don't think that that's going to come back to the Ed Snyder days simply because that's not the way the game is moving. It's less and less of, I don't want to say an importance because it's still important, but it's not like one of those things where like you need it. You know, this game, it's just not all about that physicality anymore. It's more about speed and athleticism and things like that.
Yeah. And don't mistake, like there's still a place in the game for it.
Sure.
Yeah, but the way the game's heading right now, it's the skill, it's the speed, it's the stick work, it's the footwork, it's the I don't know what you want to call them, intangibles, I guess. Some of the things you just can't teach, and some people have it and some people don't. You see it even just in the size of some of these players, because back in the day, you're drafting a guy because he's 6'5", 230. Now, you know, Cole Caulfield is dominating at the national level, and he's, 5'7", and he's a $160 maybe?
Right.
Yeah, so that's the way the game's heading, and that's just how it is.
Right. I mean, intensity and physicality, it's branded differently now.
Yeah. So the next question he presents, he asks, will you guys be coming up to the Lehigh Valley this year to see the Phantoms?
So you want to take this one?
I'm going to take this one because this is actually my formal announcement that I've been meaning to make for the past couple weeks. Coming up this season, for the 1920 season, me, Derek Bobb, will assume the role of head Phantoms writer for Philadelphia Sports Network.
Yeah, you will.
So I will be covering all things Phantoms. I will be talking to the team, people involved with the team. I will be letting you know what's going on with the Phantoms. I will be trying to keep on top of it. It's been very busy around the Bob household lately, but come hockey season, my content will be mainly focused on the Phantoms. So I will probably be there for a handful of games. I told John here, I've spoken to a couple people within our organization here at PSN. I'm trying to make at least 2 games, but not just me. We will have other writers covering the games as well. Jamie will be there. Obviously, we all know Jamie. Our writer Ryan Boyd had been to a couple games last year. He may assume a few games this year as well. We'll see. You know, it just depends on availability. We have our credentials for that team as well, so we'll try to make it to as many games as we possibly can. But
there you go.
That's your formal announcement. John Gove covers prospects. I cover the older prospects and prospect bullies.
We've got like a prospect split going.
That doesn't mean you need to weight our opinion on Flyers matters any less. So
exactly. This is our Flyers coverage.
Yes, this is our Flyers coverage. This is our little fix for the week. But so the third question to round out Papa John's questions here. Any new beers you guys have tried this summer? John tried Yingling Light, and he didn't like it apparently because he had to piss every 5 minutes.
That doesn't count though. I tried this one Flying Dog that I keep talking about, and I can't find it anywhere now. And I don't even remember what it was called, but it had Old Bay seasoning in it.
Dead Rise.
Dude, I didn't think I was going to like it. I loved it.
It's not bad, right?
No, it's good. Definitely just a change of pace. It's like, you can drink your White Claws and I'll drink Old Bay beer.
Yeah. I had that a while back and I really liked it. It was interesting. My beer choice this summer has been Victory's No Brainer IPA. I did I bring up a 6-pack of that when we were up together at your place?
I think so. Yeah, the one you couldn't find was
Next Coast.
Where you were looking. Yeah, yup.
Next Coast
I've
IPA.
had the Victory. Well, I mean, I had it when you were here, but I've had it before too. It's good stuff.
Oh, dude, I've been like binge drinking this stuff. I shouldn't say that, but it's that good. Seriously, Victory's No Brainer IPA is literally a no brainer. If you like IPAs, that's the beer, man. I'm telling you.
I've been having a hard time with the IPAs recently. I don't know if it's
hot.
the heat. Whew.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That'll do it, dude.
No.
We're beer guys.
I mean,
you know that.
Right. Right.
He probably got that from all the times that like we'll go into a new segment and I just crack open a can right in front of the microphone here.
Probably.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, as you may know, we're beer drinkers. It happens.
Yes, we are. Right.
Well, moving on, Cliff Waddling asks us how many players or prospects train in the area and keep close ties with the team, strength and conditioning coach, or medical staff, or train together. Well, I'm not very privy to this information, but I can only assume that a majority of these players, if not all, stay pretty close. They all train in the off season, usually close to where they live.
Right.
But when it comes time to, get ready for camp, I'm sure that they've all got apartments or houses around Philadelphia or Lehigh Valley for that matter. So they've got residences here in Pennsylvania.
Yeah. I mean, when it comes to like the prospects and stuff, some of them get asked to stay close. Like Wyatt Wiley was asked to stay close. I don't have an exact number either, but I do know like the more, like I'm trying to think of the word, like the more established you are,
high profile.
Yeah. Like it doesn't matter where you train. I mean, I'm sure like during the summer they have their own places by like their home. Whether they go back up to Canada or whatever that they train. But I would say a decent amount stay in the area to train.
Yeah. I mean, and it makes sense because if you're going to stay close to the rink, that's where you're practicing. And Voorhees isn't very far from Philly. So
right.
You want to stay relatively close. So then the next question comes from Nick Hunsicker.
Yep.
And Nick asks, if you could take back any trade in Flyers history, what would it be and why?
Bobrovsky.
Hands down. There's no other trade.
Just imagine how different things would be if we didn't trade away Sergei Bobrovsky.
I'll be bold here and say that if we wouldn't have traded Bobrovsky and he would have turned into the goalie that he is today, there would be a Stanley Cup parade that has happened down Broad Street. I really believe that.
Yeah. Here's the thing, though. Do you think if we kept Bobrovsky, we would have also held on to Jeff Carter and Mike Richards? Because then this team looks very different.
Now, in an ideal world, if we would have kept Bobrovsky and still made those trades, yeah, the Stanley Cup parade would have happened. But, like you said last week, we probably wouldn't have made those trades if it weren't for the fact that we signed Brizgalov. We wouldn't have needed to sign Brizgalov if we had, magic binoculars that could see into the future. But
now, to be fair, I mean, Mike Richards and Jeff Carter won a Stanley Cup with LA, so we definitely could have still won a Stanley Cup. It just would have been a completely different team.
Oh, for sure. The core would have been completely different from what it is today.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, hindsight's 20/20, right?
Yep.
Well, our next question here comes from Will Roberts, and Will asks, I don't know much about hockey, so what are our chances for the upcoming season?
So, where do we project them?
Yeah, I guess the official Pod Street Bully projections here. Where do we see the Flyers fitting into the Metro, the Eastern Conference, and the NHL?
I think they'll win a round. Maybe two. I don't think they're ready to hang yet and go, Eastern Conference Finals and Stanley Cup champions yet. But yeah, I mean, I think that they definitely have at least one round in them.
I've read, and I can't quote the source, but I've heard some rumblings about some experts viewing the Flyers as this year's, the 1920 season's Carolina Hurricanes, which would be phenomenal.
Yeah.
They made the Eastern Conference Finals, but didn't put up much of a fight against Boston.
Right.
I'd love to say right now that the Flyers could make a Stanley Cup, but the way the roster stands, on paper, it's not bad. It's pretty good. Right. But it all needs to come together. And
I also think it's...
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. I cut you off again.
If this team's got to gel together, and that's,
right.
If it gels together the way it should and the way we all hope it does, yeah, I could see the Flyers winning a round or two, like John said here. But That's a big if.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I wouldn't be shocked if they don't make the playoffs. I mean, maybe that's a little pessimism coming out, but after last year, man, anything can happen. But I do think that they're better than most experts want to give them credit for.
You're right. Like you said I believe it was last week with the ESPN rankings.
Yeah.
Like that's, come on. Like they're better than that. We know that.
Right.
So the next question, and the next three questions for that matter, come from Jenna, the Flyers fan. She asks, who will be the first to score at home this season and the first to score on the road?
Well, actually, I got a good answer for the... Wait, it's the first game at home?
The first game is actually in the Czech Republic.
In Prague.
Yeah.
So does that one... So is that... That's on the road, I'm assuming?
It's actually technically a home game for the Flyers, but they're playing in the Czech Republic, so it's not... It's not a home game.
It doesn't really matter. Whatever the first game is, Kevin Hayes is going to pot a hat trick and then not score again until December.
Their first home game, true home game in Philadelphia, comes against the Devils 5 days after their game against the Blackhawks in Prague.
All right. Well, I still stick to it. Kevin Hayes is going to just shock everybody, score a hat trick. Everybody's going to be all woohoo about him, and then he's not going to score again until December.
That'll buy him a little time with the Flyer faithful.
Right.
Last year, our guy Austin Mitchell actually posed this question just on Twitter, and I responded and I said Oscar Lindblom would have the first goal for the Flyers for the season, and I was right.
Look at you. So you're going to give us a serious answer.
I'm gonna toot my own horn there for a second, but then I'm going to come with this. The first goal for the Flyers is going to be scored by whoever takes the third right wing spot.
Okay.
It's either going to be Frost or Farabee, in my opinion.
Derek's a betting man. He's not putting a name on it. He's putting a position.
It's going to be whoever takes it, because we can assume right now that the third line is going to be Lindblom, Patrick, and a name to be named later.
Yep.
That name to be named later is going to score that goal, and the Wells Fargo Center is going to go bonkers. That's against Jersey, their first true home game. That's what we're going to call their first home game. Their first road game comes 3 days later against the Canucks, and it's a 10 o'clock game, so I'll be asleep by then.
Mm-hmm.
That goal is going to come from none other than Travis Konechny.
There you go.
There's your bold prediction, Jenna.
People would go nuts with the home game. Mm-hmm. Guarantee you somebody would go on Twitter and be like, see, I've been how great this person is.
Oh, yeah. Someone will say it, and I'm going to be the one that calls them out and says they're an idiot and shut up. So we've got that down. The next question comes from Jenna. If the expansion draft was tomorrow, who do you think Seattle takes and why?
The expansion draft was tomorrow.
Yes, Monday. It does depend on who they're going to decide to protect.
So I'm going to say that they wouldn't protect Voracek.
Yeah.
And then, as long as they protected Gostisbehere, Seattle would take Voracek.
But then that leaves Travis Sanheim open. See, I think they'd take Gostisbehere.
Yeah.
If
that makes more
Gostisbehere's not
sense.
corrected or not protected.
Right. No, that makes sense.
I mean, you're paying $4.5 million for that guy. And
Right.
Voracek could help them with their cap situation because I'm assuming they'll probably end up choosing some guys that are on the lower end of the spectrum when it comes to cap.
Right.
Voracek's not a bad decision by Ron Francis up in Seattle by any means.
Right.
But Ron Francis, right? Ron Francis is the GM in Seattle.
I believe so.
I know he was the Canes GM for a little bit.
Right. No, I think you're right.
Okay, I could be wrong there. My apologies. But yeah, I think it's Gostisbehere. I think that they'll leave him unprotected because they've got to protect Sanheim. They've got to protect Provorov. And I believe they'll have to protect Myers as well.
Yes.
Yeah. So, I unless there's a handshake agreement in place where, hey, we'll give you our
Right.
first round pick if you don't take this guy or whatever it may be.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's good. I'll go with that too. Ghost.
Perfect. Then there's that.
All right,
and
let's
then
wrap it up.
The last question from Jenna. After this year, do we
Yep.
still have a good prospect system remaining from Hextall's time, or is it time to get serious again? John, you're a prospect guy.
Yes, we do. I mean, there's still going to be a lot of Hextall's prospects within the system. Maybe one or two of them get some love in the NHL this year, but there's still going to be plenty. And they did really good in the draft this year. Chuck Fletcher, I'm excited to see what these prospects can bring to the table. I think that who we have in the prospect pool is going to make our prospect pool good for, I don't know, I want to say like the next 2-3 years. I mean, but you always have to be serious about prospects. I think that gone are the days of like just trading away anybody, to get an NHL talent. I think that they'll remain serious, but I think we're fine in that category.
Yeah, we're finally starting to see some of the prospects that Hextall drafted come up into the AHL. This year will be their first season. You've got Frost, you've got Farabee, not Wade Allison, I'm sorry.
Nope. Nope. Way to go, Phantoms guy.
Isaac Ratcliffe will be there.
Yep.
You're starting to see these higher tier prospects come up through, and I'm really encouraged, like John said here, about the draft from this past year, because an article I wrote a while back was like the boom or bust mentality, and actually got that idea from John. A lot of these guys have the ability to be the top tier guys in the leagues they're in, and it's just a matter of yes or no whether they thrive at the next level. They've got the keys,
Right.
they've got the skill sets to do so. It's just a matter of whether they can translate it to a higher competitiveness level. So,
Right.
yeah, the prospects, it's not
it'll
over.
It'll be interesting to see if the intrigue remains with the prospects if the Flyers start to succeed, though, because I mean, a lot of people have become more and more interested in the farm system because the NHL team really isn't providing them much to cheer for.
That's
A
really
lot
good
of these
point.
guys are still going to be in the farm system for at least 2-3 years. It'll be interesting to see if people remain interested.
That's actually a really good point. You
I
know,
hope so, at least for our sake.
Oh yeah, it's you look at how many prospects we've built up and how much stock we're putting into these guys, because that's really the one thing that we've gotten to look forward to during the seasons where we haven't had a successful NHL team that makes the playoffs, makes a run. So many times we're stuck watching other teams in the playoffs. It's like, okay, what can we talk about Flyers related prospects? Right. So,
Right.
Yeah. Well, guys, that's Pod Street Bullies number 27. 27 episodes, man. Time's flying.
I know.
This is fun.
Yeah, man. That's been fun. And it's been great, the reception we're getting recently. So thanks to everybody who's been listening to us.
It is, yeah. And we'll always have some fun on Twitter. We'll always respond. We'll always, keep the dialogue going. But please, if you haven't already, subscribe on Apple Podcast. Please write us a review. Tell us how much you love us, because let's be honest, we know you do.
Of course.
You can find us on Spreaker, on Apple Podcasts, obviously, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Podbean. There's a million other outlets you can find us on. Twitter, we always post that there too. But folks, that is it for us, and have a wonderful week ahead. And as always, let's go Flyers.
Bye now.